She found him in a pool of black ice and darker blood, holding 2 baby seats like they were the only things keeping him alive. He was dying, and he was pointing a gun straight at her chest. The freezing rain had been hammering the city's warehouse district for 4 hours straight. The kind of November rain that turns the road into glass and cuts right through a cheap delivery jacket. Maya Rodriguez watched her windshield wipers lose the fight against the downpour, her breath fogging up the inside of her old beat-up van. The clock on the dashboard glowed 11:34 at night. She'd been going since 3 that afternoon, nursing classes until 7, then straight into delivery shifts. She had started in medical school, 2 years in, before switching to nursing when the money dried up. And in the end, it was grief that made her drop out of everything. Her feet ached inside her second-hand shoes. Her stomach had been empty since the granola bar she'd split in half that morning, saving the other half for tomorrow's breakfast. The delivery app dinged, "You have arrived. Drop off at loading dock, rear entrance, $15 tip." Maya's chest tightened with something close to relief. That tip meant she could buy the instant noodles with the egg in it, not just the plain kind. It meant her bank account wouldn't bounce when her student loan tried to process on Friday. She grabbed the insulated bag from the passenger seat. Expensive sushi order. The kind of midnight craving only someone with money to waste would have. The receipt showed $200 for raw fish that would probably sit in some executive break room fridge until it went bad. Maya turned off the engine. The silence hit her immediately, and it felt wrong. No hum of machines, no security lights sweeping the parking lot, just the sound of rain on metal and the far-off roar of the highway. She'd done warehouse drop-offs before. They always had guards, cameras, that buzzing energy of a place that never fully sleeps. This one felt hollow, forgotten. Just drop it and go, she told herself. Clock out, drive home, eat something, sleep. But that $15 tip. Maya pulled her hood up and stepped out into the rain. It hit like needles, sharp and mean. The loading dock was ahead, a big concrete ledge built into the side of the building. The overhead light was dead. The booth where a guard should have been sitting was dark and empty. Her shoes splashed through puddles as she walked closer. The insulated bag felt heavier with every step. Something in her gut twisted. Nursing school had taught her to trust that feeling. The same feeling that made her check a patient's breathing before the monitors even caught up. She was 20 feet from the dock entrance when she heard it. Crying, not just any crying, the desperate, hiccuping wail of a baby. 2 voices, actually, 2 babies. Maya stopped dead. The bag slipped from her numb fingers and smacked the wet pavement. Forgotten, hello. Her voice came out smaller than she meant, swallowed by rain and darkness. Is someone there? The crying got louder. Terrified, alone, Maya's feet moved before her brain could stop them. She rounded the corner of the loading dock, her eyes straining against the dark. The security light from the main building barely reached back here, painting everything in pale orange shadows. Then she saw them. 2 baby carriers sat on the rain, slicked concrete, tucked partway under a fire escape for cover. The babies inside couldn't have been more than 6 or 7 months old. Their little faces were red and scrunched with fear, their cries ragged and raw. But it was the man beside them that made Maya stop breathing. He was slumped against the brick wall, one hand white, knuckling the handle of the nearest carrier. Even in the dim light, she could see the dark stain spreading across his shoulder and chest, mixing with the rain, too thick to just be water. His suit was expensive, even soaked and ruined. She could tell it cost more than her whole semester's tuition. Dark hair was plastered to his forehead. Intricate tattoos crept up his neck from under his collar, winding and deliberate. A luxury car sat about 20 feet away, its front end crumpled into a support pillar, smoke still rising from the hood. Oh my gosh, Maya dropped to her knees beside him. The cold water soaked through her jeans instantly, but she barely noticed. Sir, can you hear me?" His eyes opened slowly, dark, almost black in the shadows. They were filled with pain and something else that made her heart slam against her ribs. Not fear for himself, fear for the crying babies beside him. Leave, his voice was barely a whisper, heavy with an accent she couldn't quite place. Korean, maybe. His hand moved slow and shaking, and Maya's blood turned to ice. He was holding a gun. The barrel lifted, wavering, pointed at her chest. Leave, he rasped again, or die. Maya's hands were already pressing against his shoulder before her mind caught up with what her body was doing. Warm, wet blood. She'd seen enough during her hospital training to know this was bad. The wound was still bleeding, though not as heavily as it must have been at first. But his skin was cold, too cold. His breathing was shallow and ragged. You need a hospital. The words came out automatic, trained. I need to call for help. No, the gun steadied just slightly. His jaw clenched. No police, no hospital. They will find the children. The babies were screaming now, a sound that reached into Maya's chest and squeezed something ancient and primal. She looked at the loading dock doors behind him. They were locked from the outside. He wasn't hiding here. He was trapped here. Her mind raced. 2 years of medical school before she dropped out. Before her parents died in that twisted wreck of metal and fire. Before she'd held her father's hand while he bled out on the side of the road, waiting for an ambulance that came too late. Before she'd watched her mother slip away in a hospital bed, calling Maya's name with her last breath. If I'd just known more, if I'd just been faster, if I'd just please, the word left his lips like a prayer. The gun lowered, his strength giving out. Please. Maya looked at the babies, looked at this man who was dying but still holding on to them with everything he had left. Looked at the locked doors and the empty guard booth and the smoking car. Every rational thought she had screamed at her to run, call for help, do the safe thing, the legal thing. But she thought of her father's last words. Don't let them go, Em. Whatever you do, don't let them go. Okay, the word left her mouth before she could stop it. Okay, but we're moving right now. Can you stand? He nodded. It was probably a lie. Maya looked at the babies. Are they yours? Something flickered in his eyes. Pride, even through the agony. My children, Lena, Sam. Then Lena and Sam are coming too. Maya grabbed the first carrier, heavier than she expected. She set it carefully where the rain couldn't reach, then grabbed the second. Her arms burned. She went back to the man and slid her shoulder under his good arm. On 3, my van is 40 feet away. You're going to make it. Understand? He nodded again. 1, 2, 3, they rose together. His weight nearly buckled her knees. He was tall, easily 6'2", solid muscle under the ruined suit. He bit back a sound of pain, and Maya felt him shaking. Step by agonizing step, they made their way toward her van. Maya's lungs burned. Her legs shook. She kept talking, partly to keep him awake, partly to keep herself from screaming. I'm Maya, by the way, Maya Rodriguez. I'm a nursing student. Well, I was. I dropped out, but I remember enough. God, I hope I remember enough. They reached the van. She propped him against the side and ran back for the babies, grabbing both carriers, her arms screaming in protest. She buckled them into the back seat, her fingers fumbling with the straps. The babies had gone quiet, dropping down to exhausted whimpers, their wide eyes watching her with that strange awareness babies sometimes have. It's okay, Maya whispered, though she had no idea if that was true. I've got you. The man had slid down the side of the van by the time she got back. Maya hauled him into the passenger seat. His head fell against the headrest. She slammed the door and ran to the driver's side. The engine coughed twice before turning over. Maya's hands were shaking so badly she could barely grip the wheel. She pulled away from the warehouse, her eyes jumping between the road and the man beside her. In the dashboard light, she could see his face clearly now. Sharp features, the intricate ink crawling up his neck and into his hairline, the suit worth 6 months of her rent, the watch on his wrist worth enough to wipe out her student loans. What have I done? The drive to her studio apartment usually took 30 minutes. Maya made it in 18, running 2 red lights, pushing her old van until the frame rattled. She kept talking the whole way, rambling, desperate. My place is small, really small, but it's clean. I have bandages and stuff. I can do this, I can, thank you. His voice cut through her panic, quiet but steady. Maya's hands tightened on the wheel. In the back seat, one of the babies started crying again, a sound that reached into her chest and squeezed. Almost there, she promised all of them, her voice cracking. Almost there. She pulled up to her building, turned off the engine, and sat for one long moment in the quiet. She had just brought a wounded stranger and 2 babies to her home. She hadn't called the police. She had no idea what had happened to him, who he was, or who was after him. His hand touched her arm. Maya jumped. His eyes were open, clearer now, even with the pain carved into every line of his face. "Thank you," he said again, and the weight of those 2 words settled over her like a crown she never asked to wear. Maya nodded and stepped out into the rain, and so it began. Getting him up 3 flights of stairs nearly finished them both. Maya half, carried half, dragged him, stopping every few steps while he fought to stay conscious. Mrs. Chen from the 2nd floor opened her door at the noise, took one look at the situation, and closed it again without a word. Maya had never been more grateful for a neighbor's total lack of interest in other people's problems. By the time they reached her door, she was trembling. The man was barely breathing, and somewhere out in the night behind them, someone was hunting. Maya's studio apartment was a tight little box on the 3rd floor of a building that probably should have been condemned years ago. Peeling wallpaper, the color of old coffee, a kitchenette barely big enough to turn around in, a futon with springs that had given up a long time ago. The radiator clanked and hissed, making more noise than heat. She kicked the door shut behind her and let the man collapse against the nearest wall. His weight had almost broken her on the last flight of stairs. Her shoulders screamed, her thighs burned. But she couldn't stop, not yet. The babies were still crying. Maya set both carriers on the futon, her hands shaking so bad she fumbled the buckles. Lena's face was red and blotchy, her tiny fists waving in distress. Sam's cries were rougher, more exhausted. I know, I'm sorry," her voice broke. She had no idea what she was doing with babies. Her training had been focused on adult patients. She'd held an infant exactly twice in her life, both times under supervision. A wet, rattling cough snapped her attention back to the man. He'd slid down the wall, leaving a dark smear behind him. His head tilted to one side, eyes closed, breathing ragged. Blood had soaked through his entire left side now, spreading across expensive fabric that looked completely absurd in her tiny apartment. He looked like he'd been ripped from a completely different world and dropped into hers, broken and bleeding. Maya's training kicked in, shutting down the panic. She pulled the plastic storage bin from under the futon, the one labeled medical in faded marker. Bandages, gauze, alcohol, tweezers, surgical thread she'd borrowed from the university supply room before dropping out. A half-empty bottle of vodka that lived in her freezer for nights when the loneliness got too heavy. She spread a sheet on the floor, rolled him onto it, and knelt beside him. Her hands moved with mechanical precision, cutting away the ruined suit jacket. The fabric tore easily under her scissors, revealing the dress shirt underneath. White silk turned dark red with blood. She cut that away too. The wound was high on his left shoulder, just below the collarbone. Entry wound, small, clean. Probably a 9mm. Her fingers probed carefully, looking for an exit wound. Nothing. The bullet was still inside. The man's eyes fluttered open at her touch, dark and unfocused, pupils blown wide with pain and shock. He said something in Korean, thick and slurred. I don't understand. Maya pressed gauze against the wound, applying pressure. Blood welled between her fingers, hot and sticky. Stay with me. I need you awake. His hand shot up, gripping her wrist with surprising strength. His fingers were cold despite the fever heat coming off his skin. The touch sent electricity up her arm, sharp and impossible to ignore. His gaze locked on hers, suddenly clear and sharp. Don't stop. His accent made the words sound like gravel wrapped in silk. Whatever happens, don't stop. I won't. Maya didn't know why she made that promise, but the words came out solid. Certain, she poured vodka over the tweezers, then over the wound. The man hissed through his teeth. His jaw clenched hard enough that the muscles in his neck stood out like cables. The intricate tattoos there seemed to shift in the dim light. Dragons and geometric shapes and characters she couldn't read. Maya took a breath and pushed the tweezers into the wound. His hand tightened on her wrist hard enough to bruise. He didn't scream, didn't make a sound beyond a sharp inhale. But his entire body went rigid, every muscle locked in agony. Almost there. Sweat ran down Maya's spine, even though the apartment was cold. Her hand was steady. 2 years of medical school and a lifetime of watching her mother stay calm during her father's worst moments had taught her how to compartmentalize, how to shut emotion off and just do what needed doing. The tweezers caught something solid. Maya adjusted her angle, felt resistance, and pulled. The bullet came free with a wet sound that turned her stomach. She dropped it into a bowl with a little metallic clink, then immediately pressed fresh gauze against the wound. The man's grip on her wrist loosened. His head fell back, his breath coming in shallow gasps. For a terrifying moment, Maya thought she'd lost him. Then his chest rose and fell. Stay with me. She threaded the needle with shaking hands. The surgical thread was old, probably expired, but it would have to do. This is going to hurt. She pushed the needle through skin. He flinched but didn't pull away. Maya worked quickly, her stitches neat despite the tremor in her fingers. Muscle memory from hours in the skills lab, stitching up training dummies that didn't bleed or breathe or grip her wrist like she was the only thing keeping them in the world. 10 stitches, 12, 15. She tied off the last one and sat back on her heels, breathing hard. Blood covered her hands, soaked into her jeans, splattered across her thin tank top. The metallic smell filled the small space, mixing with the vodka and the scent of him. Expensive cologne cut with sweat and gunpowder. Maya bandaged the wound with the last of her clean gauze, wrapping it tight across his shoulder and around his back. Her hands brushed against bare skin. He was burning up, fever climbing. She needed fluids in him, needed to watch for infection, watch for signs of shock. But first the babies. They'd gone quiet, not peaceful, exhausted. That scared her more than the crying did. Maya washed her hands at the kitchenette sink, scrubbing away the blood, then went back to the carriers. Lena stared up at her with wide dark eyes. She'd stopped crying, but her little face was still red, her expression one of pure confused misery. Sam had fallen into an uneasy sleep, his small chest rising and falling fast. "What do I do with you two?" Maya whispered. A sound made her turn. The man had pushed himself up to sitting, his back against the wall. His face was gray with pain, but his eyes were focused, locked on the babies with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Lena," his voice was rough, the girl. "Sam is the boy. They need formula, diapers. I don't have any of that." Maya heard the edge of panic creeping into her own voice. "I can't just leave you here and cabinet under the car seats." He gestured weakly toward the carriers. "Emergency supplies." Maya blinked. Sure enough, when she looked closer, she found storage compartments built into the bottom of each seat. She popped them open and found sealed ready-made formula bottles, a pack of diapers, and even a pacifier. "You came prepared. I'm always prepared." Something flickered in his expression, not quite a smile, but close. It softened the hard lines of his face, made him look younger, human. Maya warmed the bottles in the microwave, testing the temperature on her wrist the way she vaguely remembered from a babysitting job when she was 16. She lifted Lena first, cradling the small warm weight against her chest. The baby latched onto the bottle right away, drinking with desperate hunger. "When did they last eat?" Meyer asked. 7 hours. The man's jaw tightened. Maybe 8. These babies were maybe 6 months old. Maya's chest tightened with something dangerously close to rage. What kind of situation forces a man to go 8 hours without being able to stop and feed his own children? Lena finished the bottle and immediately fell asleep against Maya's shoulder, a warm, trusting weight. Maya set her back in the carrier and picked up Sam. He woke with a startled cry, his small body stiffening. Maya shushed him softly and offered the bottle. He resisted at first, turning his face away, but hunger won. He drank more slowly than his sister, his eyes watching Maya with an unsettling awareness. They're beautiful, Maya said softly. Yes, the man's eyes hadn't left them. In the harsh light from the single overhead bulb, Maya could finally see him clearly. Strong features, sharp cheekbones, a mouth that looked like it rarely smiled. The tattoos on his neck were intricate, clearly done by someone expensive. And his hands, even bloodied and trembling, were elegant. Long fingers, clean nails despite everything. Hands that could sign a death warrant or cradle a newborn with equal ease. Maya changed both babies, fumbling through the process. Neither of them seemed to care much about her inexperience. They were too worn out. She got them settled back in their carriers, covered them with her only clean blanket, and turned back to the man. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. You should sleep, Maya said. Your body needs to heal. You should run. He said it like a fact, no emotion in it. Take whatever cash is in my wallet and disappear. This apartment isn't safe the moment I give you my name. Maya crossed her arms over her chest, suddenly very aware of how small her apartment was, of how close he was, of the way the air between them felt charged with something she couldn't name. A little late for that warning. I'm giving it anyway. He shifted, wincing when the movement pulled at his stitches. You don't know what you've brought into your home. Then tell me. Maya moved closer, crouching so they were at eye level. Who shot you? Why were you at that warehouse? And why was the loading dock locked from the outside? The man studied her for a long moment. His gaze dropped to her mouth, then back to her eyes. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. What's your phone number? Maya rattled it off without thinking. He pulled out his phone, cracked screen still working, and pulled up her delivery profile. Her photo stared back at her. Maya Rodriguez, 5 stars, 3,000 deliveries completed. Who ordered the sushi? He asked. Maya frowned. Some corporate account. Big tip. I didn't really check the name. He showed her the screen. The order details, the timestamp. Then he showed her something else. A canceled order, placed and deleted within the same minute. A ghost entry that shouldn't exist. No one ordered the sushi. His accent wrapped around her name when he said it next like smoke. They hacked the app, created a fake order to lure a driver to that exact location at that exact time. They needed someone to unlock the loading dock doors from the outside. You weren't just in the wrong place at the wrong time, Maya. You were the key they planned to use to get to me. Maya's blood went cold. That's not possible. You're a nursing student. You work 4 nights a week doing deliveries. You cover the warehouse district because nobody else wants it. You're predictable, reliable. He locked the phone screen, and you were exactly what they needed. What they needed, Maya's voice came out flat, was to trap me. The man leaned his head back against the wall, exhaustion finally catching up with him. And to make sure there was a civilian witness who could be blamed when they killed me. The words just hung there, heavy and thick. Maya stood up fast, backing away, her mind spinning. Then why didn't they kill me? Because I killed them first. He said it like he was commenting on the weather. 4 men waiting in the loading dock shadows. They expected me to arrive alone, wounded from the car crash, looking for shelter. They didn't expect me to arrive 10 minutes early and clear the building before you got there. You were protecting me. The realization hit Maya like a physical blow. You didn't know me. You'd never seen me. But you stayed in that alley because you knew I was coming. I owed you a debt. His eyes closed. You were bait, innocent. That made you my responsibility. Maya thought about the empty guard booth, the unlocked loading dock doors, the way he'd been positioned against the wall when she'd found him. He hadn't been hiding. He'd been standing guard. Who are you? She whispered. He opened his eyes, met her gaze with an intensity that made her feel completely exposed. Someone who shouldn't be here. Someone who's going to get you killed if you let him stay. Then why did you let me bring you here? Because I'm a selfish man. A flicker of dark humor touched his mouth. And because my children needed somewhere safe to sleep. Maya looked at the twins, looked at this dangerous, wounded man bleeding on her floor, looked at her hands, still faintly stained despite washing them twice. She'd made her choice the moment she pressed her hands to his chest and refused to let him die. "There's a blanket in the closet," Maya said quietly. "And the futon folds out. Don't, you're in no condition to argue, and I'm too tired to care about consequences right now. Tomorrow we figure it out. Tonight, everyone in this apartment survives. That's the only goal." The man studied her for a long moment. Then, impossibly, he smiled, a real smile, small and crooked and completely devastating. "You're dangerous," says the man who shoots people in warehouses, especially for a man who shoots people in warehouses. Maya pulled the blanket from her tiny closet and spread it over the extended futon. She helped him to his feet, his weight against her side, his breath warm on her temple. She got him settled on the futon, propped pillows behind his back so his wounded shoulder stayed elevated. The studio felt even smaller now, with 4 people in it. Maya grabbed her own pillow and curled up on the floor between the futon and the babies. A human wall between the wounded man and his children. She should have been terrified, should have been calling the police, should have been barricading herself in the bathroom, should have been anywhere but here. Instead, she closed her eyes and listened to the sound of breathing. 4 lives all tangled up together now, all depending on choices she'd made in the span of a few heartbeats. Tomorrow would bring consequences. Tonight, she'd bought them all a chance to survive. In the dark, she heard his voice, so quiet she almost missed it. "Thank you." Maya didn't answer, didn't trust herself to speak, because she was starting to realize something terrifying. She didn't regret any of it. Morning came hard and unforgiving. Maya woke to crying. Lena this time, her wails high and insistent. Gray light came through the single window, turning the studio into a washed-out scene of chaos. Blood, stained sheets, medical supplies scattered across the floor, empty formula bottles. And the man, awake and watching her from the futon. His fever had broken sometime in the night. Maya could tell from the clarity in his eyes, the steadier rhythm of his breathing. But he looked worse in daylight. The shadows under his eyes were deep purple. His skin had taken on a grayish cast. The bandages on his shoulder were spotted with fresh blood. "She's hungry," he said simply. Maya pushed herself up. Every muscle screamed. She hadn't slept more than 2 hours, jolting awake at every sound, certain she'd hear footsteps in the hallway or her door splintering. But the building stayed quiet. Even the neighbor next door kept her TV volume low. Maya made bottles, changed diapers, moved through it all on autopilot. Her hands knew what to do even when her brain felt stuffed with cotton. When both babies were settled, she turned to find the man trying to sit up. "Don't," she crossed to him fast. "You'll pull the stitches. I need my phone." His voice was strained but determined. "See if anyone's reached out. You need to rest." Maya pushed him back down, maybe more firmly than she meant to. Her palm pressed against his bare chest, still too warm. His heart hammered under her hand. She pulled back quickly, suddenly very aware of his skin, of the heat, of the way he was looking at her. "I'm not used to being told what to do. Then this will be a learning experience." Their eyes met and held. Something passed between them in that moment. Something that made her breath catch and her skin feel electric. She'd spent her whole life making herself small, invisible, unthreatening. Her father had needed that from her. The nursing program had expected it. Even her delivery job required a practiced harmlessness. But this man was looking at her like she was the most dangerous thing in the room. "You're used to people being afraid of you," Maya said quietly. "Yes, I should be afraid of you, yes." His gaze dropped to her mouth. "But you're not. I'm terrified." Maya's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "Just not of you." That confession hung between them. The man's expression shifted into something Maya couldn't read. Before either of them could speak, Sam started fussing. The moment shattered, Maya spent the morning in survival mode. She rationed the last of the emergency formula, washed the blood, soaked sheets in the bathroom sink, changed the man's bandages with steady hands that hid the chaos going on inside her chest. By noon, the reality of the situation had started pressing in. She had nothing to eat beyond half a box of stale crackers. The formula wouldn't last another day. She had $43 in her bank account and a wounded crime boss and 2 babies in her 300-square-foot studio. Maya was washing bottles when the question finally burst out of her. What kind of father takes 6-month-old babies to a warehouse meeting? The words came out sharper than she meant. The man had been dozing, his breathing finally deep and even. His eyes opened at her voice, instantly sharp. "Excuse me." Maya turned to face him, soapy water dripping from her hands. "You heard me. What kind of man brings his baby somewhere he expects to get shot at? The kind who has no choice." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have." He shifted on the futon, jaw tight with pain or anger or both. "You think I wanted them there? You think I plan to have my children anywhere near gunfire? Then explain it to me." Maya crossed her arms. "Make it make sense. Because from where I'm standing, you either put your kids in danger on purpose, or you're lying about what happened." The silence stretched, sharp and dangerous. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and completely controlled. "I woke up at 3 in the morning to check the baby monitors. They were blank, static. I went to their room and found my head of security disabling the alarms." He paused, his hands curling into fists. He was the man I trusted to protect them when I couldn't. He was supposed to be loyal. Instead, he'd been bought. Maya's anger crumbled, replaced by cold dread. "What did you do? What I had to do?" His gaze was steady, unblinking. I dealt with him quietly. Then I grabbed the babies and ran. I had 15 minutes before the rest of his crew figured out something was wrong. I got to my car, strapped them in, and drove for the private airfield. What happened? They rammed me 6 blocks from my house. Passenger side shoved me into a support pillar. His voice stayed flat, emotionless, but she could see the tension in every line of his body. The airbags went off. The babies were screaming. I had a concussion and blood in my eyes, and I knew more people were coming. "So you went to the warehouse. It was the closest shelter. I thought I'd have 10 minutes to pull myself together. Find another vehicle. Get us out." He looked at the sleeping babies. The warehouse was supposed to be empty. Instead, it was a trap. They hacked your delivery app to make sure someone would unlock the dock doors from the outside at exactly the right moment. Maya sank into the folding chair by the kitchenette, legs suddenly weak. "You didn't take them to a meeting. You were trying to escape. I am the only safe place left in their world." The words came out rough, like they'd been scraped raw. "Their mother is gone. My whole organization has been compromised. Everyone I trusted has either betrayed me or been killed. I'm all they have left." Maya thought about her own mother, calling for her with her last breath, about holding her father's hand while he died on the side of a road, about being completely alone in the world with no one to lean on. "I understand," she said softly. The man's eyes snapped to hers. "Do you?" "Yes." Maya held his gaze. "Because I'm all I have left to." Something shifted in his expression. The wall cracked just slightly. Maya saw past the cold, hard exterior to the man underneath, desperate, exhausted, terrified of failing the 2 tiny lives depending on him. "Your bandages need changing," Maya said, breaking the moment before it could get too heavy. "And I need to check for infection." She gathered her supplies and knelt beside the futon. He sat up slowly, letting her unwrap the old gauze. The wound looked better, angry and red but holding. No signs of serious infection yet. Her fingers worked with careful precision, cleaning the area gently. She was very aware of how close they were, of the heat coming off his skin, of the way his breathing changed slightly when her hands brushed his bare shoulder. The tattoos were impossible to ignore up close. Intricate patterns covered his neck, disappeared under the bandages, snaked down his arms. Dragons coiled around geometric shapes, characters in a script she couldn't read. "Their coordinates," the man said quietly. Maya's hands went still. "What, the tattoos?" He lifted his right arm, showing her the inside of his forearm. "Numbers hidden inside the patterns. They're not just art. They're coordinates, ciphers, access codes. Encryption keys. I don't understand. The organization I run has existed for 80 years. We've built up assets, accounts, property, information networks." His voice was matter of fact, like he was describing a filing system. All of it needs keys to access. In my case, a very literal map. Maya traced one of the patterns with her fingertip, careful not to quite touch his skin. How much? How much what? How much is written on your body? The corner of his mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Enough to destabilize 3 governments and fund a small army for a decade. That's why they didn't shoot you in the head. The pieces clicked together for her. They need me alive, or they need my skin. He said it without emotion. Dead or alive, the information still exists. They just prefer alive because then they can take everything I know beyond what's inked. Maya's stomach turned. That's barbaric. That's business. She got back to work on his bandages, her hands less steady now. The closeness of the task felt different with this new knowledge. She wasn't just taking care of a wounded man. She was literally touching billions of dollars in encrypted information. Why are you telling me? Maya secured the fresh bandages, her fingers lingering against his skin a half-second too long. Because you deserve to know what you're protecting. He caught her hand before she could pull it back. His thumb brushed across her knuckles, a touch so light it barely registered, but the heat from it raced straight up her arm. And because if something happens to me, someone needs to know how to access what the children will need. Nothing's going to happen to you. You can't promise that. Watch me. Maya met his eyes, saw her own reflection in the dark depths. I didn't go through medical school, lose my parents, work myself into the ground, and carry your dying self up 3 flights of stairs just to lose you to an infection or a hired shooter. Now rest. Why? The question was soft, genuinely curious. Why are you doing this? You could have called for help. Could have walked away. Could have saved yourself. Maya thought about the real answer underneath all the reasons she kept telling herself. Because for the first time in 3 years, I feel like I'm doing something that actually matters. Like I'm not just surviving shift to shift, drowning in debt and grief and emptiness. You and these babies, you need me, and I haven't been needed in a very long time. His hand tightened on hers. You're going to get yourself killed. Maybe, Maya smiled, surprising herself. But at least I'll die doing something other than delivering expensive sushi to people who never tip. A sound escaped him, not quite a laugh, but close. It transformed his face, made him look younger, alive. Dangerous in a completely different way. Sam chose that moment to wake up crying. Maya pulled her hand free and went to him, lifting the baby to her shoulder. He was small and warm and real, his tiny fist bunching up her shirt. She turned back to find the man watching her with an expression she couldn't name. Hunger, maybe, or longing, or both. Let me try, he said. You're not strong enough. Please. That single word carried so much weight. Maya hesitated. Then she carefully passed Sam to him. She had to help position the baby, had to support most of the weight herself, because his wounded shoulder couldn't take it. He looked down at his son with pure, undisguised terror. I'm going to drop him. You won't. I've got you. And she did. Maya's hands held both the baby and the father, creating a bridge between them. Sam settled almost immediately, his small body relaxing against the man's chest. The baby's tiny hand reached up, grabbing at the ink on his father's neck. For the first time since Maya had found him bleeding in that alley, the man looked like he might break. His eyes closed, his jaw clenched, a single muscle jumped in his cheek. I don't know how to do this, he whispered. How to be soft, how to be safe for them, you learn. Maya's voice was gentle. You figure it out as you go. You make mistakes, and you fix them, and you keep trying. What if I fail? Then we fail together. Maya meant every word. She'd tied herself to these 3 lives without stopping to think about the consequences. And now, watching this dangerous man hold his son with shaking hands, she realized she wouldn't take it back even if she could. He opened his eyes, looked at her, and Maya saw the exact moment he stopped fighting, whatever was building between them. The moment he accepted that she wasn't leaving, that they were in this together. Maya, he said. Her name on his lips felt like a promise. Like a warning, like the beginning of something neither of them could control. Yeah, thank you. He said it with raw, honest sincerity, and Maya felt something crack open in her chest. Something she'd been keeping carefully locked away since the night her mother died. Hope, you're welcome. They stayed like that for a while, the three of them, connected by touch and need, and something far more dangerous. Outside, the city kept moving. Sirens wailed in the distance. Traffic hummed on the highway. The world went on, completely indifferent to the small revolution happening in Maya Rodriguez's 300-square-foot apartment. But in this moment, in this fragile little pocket of safety, it was just the four of them against everything else. Maya had no idea how they were going to survive, no plan beyond getting through the next hour, the next day. But she knew with absolute certainty that she'd made the right choice, even if it killed her. 3 days passed in a strange, suspended kind of reality. Maya called in sick to her clinical rotations, claimed a family emergency for her delivery shifts. The $43 dwindled to nothing. She stretched the last of the formula, learned to anticipate when Lena would wake crying and when Sam just needed to be held. She learned the rhythm of the man's breathing, could tell when his pain spiked, when the fever threatened to come back. They fell into a routine born purely from necessity. Maya changed his bandages at 6 in the morning and 6 at night. He insisted on trying to help with the babies despite barely being able to move. His determination was almost painful to watch. They didn't talk about what came next, didn't acknowledge the impossibility of the situation. The apartment felt both too small and strangely intimate. Every movement brought them into each other's space. Every conversation happened in whispers, so they wouldn't wake the babies. Maya slept on the floor between the futon and the carriers. A human barrier, it had become a habit. On the 4th morning, Maya woke up to find the radiator actually working. Real heat pumped through the old metal, filling the apartment with warmth for the first time since winter had started. She sat up, confused. The man was already awake, sitting on the edge of the futon, with a screwdriver in his good hand. "You fixed my heater. Simple mechanical problem. The pressure valve was stuck." He set the screwdriver down carefully. "You were cold?" Something about those words, "you were cold," made her chest ache. She'd mentioned it once, offhand, 3 days ago. And he'd remembered, had dragged himself across the apartment to fix something she'd given up on months ago. "Thank you. You're welcome." His gaze held hers. "I owed you. You don't owe me anything. I owe you everything." The words floated between them, loaded with meaning neither of them was ready to unpack. Maya broke the moment by standing quickly and busying herself with the morning routine. But she was hyper, aware of him now in a way that made her skin feel electric, of how his eyes followed her around the room, of how the air seemed charged whenever they were in the same space. By noon, they'd run out of formula. Maya stared at the empty containers with mounting dread. She had no money, no way to get more. The babies would be hungry again in 3 hours, and she had nothing to give them. "I need to make a supply run." She said it like it wasn't terrifying. "In and out. Corner store. No." His voice was sharp. "It's not safe. We don't have a choice. They need food. Then I'll go. You can barely stand." Maya grabbed her jacket. "I'll be fast 20 minutes. She left before he could argue, before she could lose her nerve. The November air bit at her face as she jogged down 3 flights of stairs. Outside, the neighborhood looked normal. Afternoon shoppers, delivery trucks, nothing suspicious. But Maya couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The corner store was 6 blocks away. She walked fast, hands shoved in her pockets, hood up against the cold. The cashier barely looked at her as she grabbed 2 containers of formula and a box of diapers. Cheapest brands available. $32. She didn't have $32. Card declined, the cashier said flatly. "Can you try again?" Declined. Maya's face burned. The line behind her was growing. "I can put back the diapers." A hand reached past her and placed 2 crisp $20 bills on the counter. Maya spun around to find an older woman standing right behind her, elegant despite her simple coat. The woman smiled at her, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "For the babies," the woman said softly. "They need to eat." Every instinct Maya had screamed danger. but she took the money, mumbled a thanks, grabbed her things, and got out of there. She made it 2 blocks before she realized someone was following her, not obviously, not aggressively. Just a man in a dark coat keeping a steady distance. When she sped up, he sped up. When she turned down a side street, he turned too. Maya broke into a run. She burst through her building's front door, took the stairs 2 at a time, fumbled with her keys. The man didn't follow her inside, but she'd felt his eyes on her back the whole way. We're compromised, she gasped the moment she was inside. Someone followed me. An older woman paid for the formula, and then a man tracked me home. The man was already moving, his face gray with pain but his eyes sharp and focused. Trackers, they mark you so others can follow the trail. We need to leave now. We can't. You're still healing, and the babies, we will die if we stay. He was already pulling himself together, moving with purpose despite his wounds. They're mapping our resources. Waiting for the right moment, Maya's hands shook as she warmed the bottles. Her mind raced. How long do we have? Hours, maybe less. She fed Lena first, the baby drinking hungrily, completely unaware of the danger around her. Sam followed, his small face relaxed and trusting. Maya memorized every detail, the weight of them. The sweet milk smell, the way their tiny fingers wrapped around hers. If something went wrong, she wanted to remember this. This one moment of peace before everything fell apart. Sam had just finished his bottle when his little body went rigid in her arms. His name came out of Maya's mouth like a crack in ice. Something's wrong. The baby's eyes rolled back. White foam appeared at the corner of his mouth. His body began to seize, violent and terrifying. No, 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 no. Maya got him on the floor, turned him on his side. Every piece of training she had kicked in at once. Airway, breathing, circulation, but nothing from her rotations had prepared her for this, for holding a seizing baby in her arms while her own heart was trying to tear its way out of her chest. The man was beside her in seconds, his pain completely forgotten. What's happening? Poison. The word came out strangled. The formula. They poisoned the formula. Lena started seizing seconds later. Maya's world narrowed to a single pinpoint. 2 babies dying in front of her. 2 lives she had promised to protect, slipping away because she'd been careless, because she'd gone to that store. Hospital, the man said. Now, we can't. Maya was already moving, pulling supplies, her hands steady even as everything inside her was screaming. They'll be waiting, they want us panicked. They want us to run straight into their arms, then what? I'm going to pump their stomachs, she said it with more confidence than she felt. Here, now. She'd seen the procedure done exactly twice during her training. Read about it in textbooks, practiced it on dummies that didn't convulse and foam and look like they were dying. She grabbed medical tubing from her supply box, a turkey baster from the kitchenette, saline solution she'd been using to clean his wound. Not sterile, not proper equipment, but it was everything she had. Hold Lena, Maya commanded. Keep her on her side. Don't let her choke. He obeyed instantly, cradling his daughter with his good arm. His face was a mask of controlled terror, but his hands were absolutely steady. Maya worked on Sam first. She measured the tubing, guided it carefully down his tiny throat. He gagged, his small body fighting her. She kept going, pumped saline in, suctioned it back out, pumped and suctioned, over and over until the fluid came back clear. Sam's seizure slowed, stopped. His breathing evened out. Maya moved to Lena, repeated the whole process with shaking hands. The little girl fought harder, her tiny hands pushed weakly against Maya's arms. But Maya didn't stop, couldn't stop, kept going until Lena's stomach was empty and her breathing steadied. Both babies lay exhausted and pale, but breathing, alive. Maya collapsed back against the wall. Her entire body trembled. Tears ran down her face, silent and hot. She'd done it, she'd actually done it. But the horror of what had almost happened, what could still happen, crashed over her in waves. The man set Lena carefully back in her carrier and turned to Maya. For the first time since she'd met him, she watched his control shatter completely. He crossed to her in 2 steps and pulled her against his chest, his good arm wrapped around her with crushing force. Maya felt him shaking, felt the wetness against her hair. You saved them. His voice was raw and broken. You saved my children. Maya couldn't speak, could only hold on to him and shake and try to breathe through the crash of adrenaline. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were dry but haunted. He held her face in his hands, his thumb brushing her tears away. I owe you more than my life, he whispered. I owe you my legacy. You don't everything I have, everything I am. Everything I've built, his eyes burned into hers, it's yours now, all of it. Because without you, none of it matters. Maya's breath caught. She knew what he was offering, not just gratitude, not just debt. Something far more permanent and dangerous. Don't answer now. He released her gently, stepping back. But the offer stands, always. Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. They spent the next hour watching the babies, checking for any lingering effects. Both twins slept restlessly, faces still pale, but breathing steady. We can't stay here, he said finally. They've marked this place. They'll come tonight. Where do we go? I have a place, a safe house. No one knows about it. He looked at her, his expression impossible to read. But once we go there, Maya, there's no coming back from it. You'll be fully committed to this world. To me, to everything that comes with it. Maya thought about her empty apartment, her abandoned dreams, her delivery job and her mounting debt and her bone. Deep loneliness. She thought about her parents' graves she hadn't visited in 6 months because she couldn't afford flowers. Then she looked at the twins, alive and breathing, because she had refused to quit. Looked at this complicated, dangerous man who had trusted her with everything that mattered. Let's go, she said simply. They packed in silence. Maya dressed the babies in clean clothes and secured them in their carriers. The man moved slowly, but with clear purpose, gathering the few things they had. His phone went into the toilet tank, destroyed beyond recovery. Maya's followed. No tracking, he said. From here on, we're ghosts. Maya took one last look at her studio apartment. The peeling wallpaper, the broken furniture, the life she'd been barely surviving in for years. She felt nothing. No sadness, no nostalgia, just relief that she was finally leaving it behind. They made it to the van without a problem. He gave her directions in short, clipped sentences. They drove in silence, city lights blurring past the windows. Maya kept checking the mirror, watching for headlights that followed too long. The streets stayed clear. Empty, too empty. Something's wrong, she said. I know. They were 15 minutes from the safe house when the burner phone rang. Unknown number. He answered and listened without speaking. When he hung up, his expression had gone cold and flat. Change of plans. The safe house is compromised. They were there first. Then where, I don't know. For the first time, he sounded lost. I don't know where else is safe. Maya's hands tightened on the wheel. Behind them, headlights appeared in the distance. One vehicle, then two, then four. We have company, she said quietly. He turned to look. Drive fast. Maya floored it. The old van protested, engine whining, but it responded. The speedometer climbed past 60. Past 70. The pursuing cars matched the speed. They're not trying to stop us, he observed. They're hurting us. To where? Nowhere good. Maya's mind raced. They had a wounded man, 2 babies, and a van that wouldn't survive a high-speed chase. No weapons, no backup, no plan. They were trapped. The GPS showed nothing but dead ends ahead. Maya took a hard right, tires screaming, the van tilting dangerously on 2 wheels. In the back, the babies woke and started crying, their wails filling the whole space. Behind them, the pursuers slowed, regrouping. They'd bought themselves minutes. Maybe Maya killed the lights and drove by moonlight alone, threading between massive storage buildings. She pulled into a narrow gap between 2 units and cut the engine. Silence. Just the tick of cooling metal and the baby's frightened cries. We need to move. He was already out of the van, his face gray with pain, but his movements decisive. Take the twins, find a unit that's unlocked. What about you? I'm the distraction. He pulled a gun from somewhere inside his jacket. She hadn't even known he was armed. They want me. I'll lead them away from you. Absolutely not. Maya, no. She grabbed the first carrier, then the second. Her arms were burning, but she didn't care. We stayed together. That's the only way this works. She saw him start to argue, then stop. Something in him shifted, not giving up. Recognizing something, he nodded once and led the way deeper into the complex. The facility was a maze of identical buildings. He moved with purpose despite his wounds, checking doors, testing locks. The third unit he tried had a broken latch. He shouldered it open and got Maya inside. Total darkness. Her heart hammered as she reached for her phone. Then remembered she'd destroyed it. Light bloomed. He'd found a battery, powered lantern someone had left behind. The unit was about 10 by 15 feet, empty except for some old furniture covered in dust and a stack of cardboard boxes. Maya set both carriers down, her arms shaking with relief. "They're right behind us," he said quietly. He was listening at the door, gun steady despite his weakened state. At least 6, maybe more. He looked at her, expression unreadable. "Maya, if I tell you to run, I won't. If I tell you to run," he continued like she hadn't spoken, "you take the babies and go. There's an emergency kit in the van under the driver's seat. Cash, fake IDs, everything you need to disappear. Stop talking like you're going to die. I'm talking like I'm prepared for reality." He moved closer and held her face gently with his free hand. "You've already done more than anyone could ask, more than I had any right to hope for. But this is where it ends for me. This is where you save yourself. No." Maya grabbed his wrist and held on. "We survive this together or we don't. Those are the only two options. Choose." For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Then he smiled. That small, crooked, devastating smile. "You're impossible. I'm committed. There's a difference." A sound outside cut off whatever he was about to say. Footsteps, multiple sets, getting closer. He killed the lantern. Darkness swallowed everything. Maya heard him move, positioning himself by the door. She fumbled in the shadows until her hands found a metal pipe in the pile of old furniture. Not much. Better than nothing. "Stay behind me," he whispered. "No matter what. Protect the babies." The footsteps stopped right outside their unit. Maya stopped breathing. In the darkness, she heard Sam starting to fuss. She pressed her hand gently over his mouth, hating herself for it, knowing a cry right now would get them all killed. The footsteps moved on. Maya let out the breath she'd been holding. They waited in the dark. Minutes crawled past like hours. The babies somehow understood the danger and stayed quiet with an eerie calm. Then the door exploded inward. The metal shutter screamed as it was yanked up. Light from outside flooded the unit. Maya was blind, eyes struggling to adjust. She heard him move, heard the sharp crack of a gunshot. Someone screamed. Multiple people screamed. Her vision cleared enough to see 2 bodies on the ground. He was already moving. His wounded shoulder completely forgotten, pure trained instinct taking over. But more were coming. She could hear them surrounding the building. Back door. Maya grabbed both carriers. Adrenaline gave her impossible strength. There has to be a back door. He fired twice more, covering their retreat. Maya found a rusted service exit, kicked it open with more force than she knew she had. They spilled into an alley. Darkness and shadows and nowhere left to run. A figure stepped out in front of them, tall, armed, face covered by a black mask. He raised his gun. The stranger was faster. He fired at the ground between them. A warning shot. "Don't." The stranger's voice was muffled by the mask. "Please don't make me do this." "Then don't," the man said coldly. "Step aside, let us go. I can't." The masked figure's voice broke. "They'll kill her, my sister. If I don't bring you in, they'll kill her." Maya's world tilted sideways. That voice, older, rougher, worn down in ways she didn't recognize. But underneath all of that, familiar in a way that made her chest collapse. "Danny?" The masked figure froze. Slowly, he reached up and pulled the mask off. Her brother stared back at her. 3 years older, harder, covered in scars she'd never seen before. But it was Danny, unmistakably Danny. His gun wavered. "What are you? Why are you? You were supposed to be safe. You said you were in treatment." Maya heard her own voice from very far away. You said you were getting clean. I lied. Danny's face twisted with shame and desperation. The organization bought my debts, gave me a choice, work for them or watch you pay what I owed. So you've been hunting us. Maya's shock was hardening into something cold. You've been trying to kill him. I'm trying to save you. Danny's voice cracked. Don't you understand? They own me now. They own everything I am. If I don't deliver him, they start hurting you until I do. He moved closer to her in 2 steps. The gun pressed to her brother's temple. How many are here? His voice was pure ice. How many hunters? 12, maybe 15. Danny wasn't fighting back. Please, I don't want to hurt anyone. I just want my sister to be safe, by working for the people trying to kill her, by doing whatever it takes. The man's finger tightened on the trigger. Maya saw it, saw the calculation in his eyes, saw him decide that Danny was too dangerous to leave walking around. Don't, Maya stepped forward, her hand closing around his wrist. Please don't, he'll betray us again. Maybe. Maya looked at her brother, this stranger wearing Danny's face, but he's still my brother, and I need to know why. I need to understand. The man held her gaze for a long moment. Then slowly, he lowered the gun, but he didn't step back. Didn't give Danny room to move. Talk, Maya said to her brother. Fast. Danny slumped against the wall like his legs had given out. After Mom and Dad died, the debts didn't die with them. The hospital bills, the funeral, the mortgage. It all fell on me. I didn't know how to handle it. So you borrowed from criminals. I borrowed from people who said they could help. His laugh was bitter and hollow. They helped themselves to everything I had left. When I couldn't pay, they gave me options. Work for them or let them take everything from you. Your apartment, your tuition, your life. Why didn't you tell me? Maya's voice broke. I was drowning too. We could have because you were already barely surviving. You just lost them too. What was I going to do? Add my failures to everything you were already carrying. A sound from the far end of the alley cut off her response. More footsteps, more hunters closing in. They're coming, Danny said quietly. I told them I'd bring you out the back. They're expecting. He never finished. The man spun Danny around and used him as a shield. As the first wave came around the corner, gunfire erupted. Danny jerked in his grip, taking 2 rounds meant for them. No. Maya's scream was swallowed by the chaos. The man returned fire with deadly precision. 3 hunters went down, 4, but there were too many. They were pinned with nowhere left to go. Danny slumped in the man's arms, blood spreading across his chest. His eyes found Maya's, filled with pain and regret and something that might have been relief. Run, Danny whispered. Please run. The man was already moving, dragging Maya back toward any cover they could find. But she looked back, saw her brother on the ground, saw the pool of dark spreading beneath him, saw him mouth words she couldn't hear. I'm sorry. Then the man pulled her around a corner, and the world exploded into noise and chaos, and the terrible mathematics of survival. They ran, through the maze of storage units, his arm locked around Maya's waist, half, carrying her while she clutched both carriers to her chest. The babies screamed, their cries echoing off the metal walls. Behind them, gunfire erupted in short bursts. Bullets pinged off aluminum siding. Maya's lungs burned. Her arms felt like they were being torn off. But she didn't stop. Danny's blood was still warm on her hands. The man pulled her left, then right, his movements purely instinctive despite his wounds. He knew how to move through chaos, how to read the sounds of people chasing you and calculate where to go next. Maya just held on and trusted him. They burst out of the maze into an open lot. The van sat 50 yards away under harsh security lighting. Too far, too exposed. We won't make it, Maya gasped. Yes, we will. His grip tightened on 3, sprint. Don't look back. Maya counted her own heartbeats. 1, 2, 3. They ran. The world narrowed to the sound of her feet hitting pavement. The weight of the babies threatening to drag her down. The electric presence of the man beside her. She heard shouting behind them, more shots. A bullet struck the pavement 6 inches from her foot. Then they were at the van. He yanked the door open and practically threw Maya inside. She buckled the carriers with shaking hands while he stood at the open door, firing back at the darkness. 3 shots, 4, a scream from somewhere out there. He dove into the passenger seat. Drive. Maya's hands found the keys still in the ignition. The engine roared. She floored it, the van fishtailing as they peeled out of the lot. In the mirror, she saw figures emerging from the storage maze. Saw muzzle flashes. Heard the dull sound of bullets hitting the van's panels. Then they were on the main road, folding into sparse late night traffic. Just another anonymous vehicle in the city's endless flow. Maya drove in silence for 20 minutes, taking random turns, doubling back, checking the mirror every few seconds. Beside her, the man was on the burner phone, face lit by the glow of the screen. The safe house, Maya said finally. Her voice sounded hollow. You said you had a safe house. Compromised. His eyes didn't leave the phone. A contact just sent coordinates. A motel outside the city. He says it's clean. Can we trust him? No. He locked the phone, but we're out of options. Maya's hands were tight on the wheel. In the back, the twins had cried themselves into exhausted sleep. She could hear their little hitching breaths, could smell copper and blood, hers, his, Danny's, all mixed together in the closed space. Danny, Maya whispered. When he recognized me, he hesitated. He didn't want to shoot. He would have. The man's voice was flat. Eventually, when the alternative was bad enough. You don't know that. I know men like him. I've been men like him. He turned to look at her, half his face in shadow from passing streetlights. Your brother sold himself to pay a debt. Once you do that, there's no buying yourself back. You just become someone else's tool until you break. Maya wanted to argue, wanted to defend Danny, but she'd seen the scars on him, the emptiness in his eyes. Her brother had been gone long before tonight. What came back to that alley was just a ghost wearing his face. I should have known, she said. I should have seen it. Stop. His hand found hers on the gear shift, his fingers lacing through hers, warm and solid and real. You can't save people who have decided not to be saved. Believe me, I've tried. They drove the rest of the way without talking. The roadside motel crouched on the edge of the highway like something that had been forgotten about 20 years ago. A neon sign flickered weakly. Maya pulled into the lot and parked in the shadow between 2 semi-trucks. Wait here, he was out before she could say anything, moving toward the office with the gun hidden under his jacket. Maya watched him go, her heart hammering. In the back, Lena stirred and whimpered softly. Maya reached back, her fingers finding the baby's small hand. Lena's grip tightened without waking up. Something in Maya's chest cracked open. These children had lost so much. Their mother, their home, their safety, and now they were sleeping in a shot-up van outside a highway motel because the world wanted them dead. He came back with a key, room 14, end unit. The room smelled like bleach and old cigarette smoke. 2 double beds, a bathroom with rust stains in the tub, a window that looked out on the highway where trucks roared past every few minutes and made the thin walls shake. Maya set the carriers on the first bed while the man checked the locks, the window, the connecting door. His movements were automatic, trained, but she could see the exhaustion in every line of him. The way he favored his shoulder. The grayness in his skin. You need to rest, she said. I need to think. He sat on the edge of the second bed, gun still in his hand. The contact wouldn't have sent us here without a reason. It's either genuinely safe or it's bait. Which do you think? Both. His smile was bleak. Everything is both, Maya, safety and trap, ally and enemy. The only question is which one kills you first. Maya went to the bathroom, wet a thin towel with cold water, brought it back to him. She knelt between his legs and gently cleaned the dried blood from his face. His neck, he let her, eyes closing, breathing slowly settling. I killed him, Maya whispered. My brother. I didn't pull the trigger, but I let you. You made a choice. His eyes opened, between the brother who sold you to pay his debts and the children who needed you to survive. That's not murder, Maya. That's math. It doesn't feel like math. No. His hand came up and cupped her jaw. His thumb traced her cheekbone, catching a tear she hadn't known was there. It feels like you're drowning. Like you can't breathe because the guilt is sitting on your chest. Like you'll never feel clean no matter how hard you scrub. Maya stared at him. How do you know that? Because I've made that choice 1,000 times. His gaze held her steady. And every single time, I chose survival. Chose the people who mattered over the people who didn't. Your brother stopped mattering the moment he pointed a gun at you. That's the only truth that counts. The room was quiet except for the hum of the old air unit and the distant roar of trucks outside. Maya was still kneeling between his legs, her hands resting on his thighs. I'm not like you, she said softly. No, both his hands cradled her face like she was something precious, like she was breakable. You're better than me. You haven't been ruined yet. Maybe I want to be ruined. The words hung between them, raw and honest. His breath caught, his eyes went dark. Don't say that. His voice was rough, strained. You don't know what you're asking for. Then show me. Maya rose on her knees, bringing herself level with him. She could feel the heat radiating off him. Could smell blood and gunpowder and something deeper underneath it all. Could see the war behind his eyes. Desire fighting against the last shreds of his self-control. Maya. Her name was a warning and a prayer at the same time. She kissed him. It wasn't gentle, wasn't careful. She kissed him like she was drowning, and he was the only air in the room. Like she needed to prove to both of them that she was still alive, still capable of feeling something other than fear and grief. He went still for half a heartbeat. Then he kissed her back with a hunger that stole the air from her lungs. His hands slid from her face into her hair, fisting in the tangled strands. His mouth was hot and demanding, tasting like copper and desperation. Maya's world went to nothing but sensation. The scrape of his stubble against her skin, the sound he made, something between a growl and a groan. When her hands found the bare skin under his ruined shirt, he pulled back suddenly, breathing hard. We can't, why not? Because you deserve better than a blood-soaked motel room and a dying man. What if I don't want better? Maya's hands were shaking as she reached for him again. What if I just want you right now, before everything falls apart? He stared at her like she'd spoken a language he'd forgotten existed. Then he was pulling her close, her straddling his lap, careful of his injuries, taking control so he wouldn't have to strain his shoulder. He turned, pressing her back against the wall beside the bed. The impact sent heat racing through her. Maya, he said her name against her throat, his lips finding her pulse. No more talking. She pulled his face back to hers. No more. 3 sharp knocks on the door shattered everything. They both froze. He set Maya aside carefully, hand already on the gun. 3 more knocks, deliberate. A woman's voice came through the door, muffled but unmistakable. I know you're in there. We need to talk. Maya's blood turned to ice. Get in the bathroom. He was already moving, his expression carved from stone. Take the babies, lock the door. Don't come out until I say, who is it? His dead wife. Maya stared at him, certain she'd misheard. But his face was completely closed off. Whatever was on the other side of that door terrified him in a way that bullets and blood never had. Maya grabbed both carriers and moved to the bathroom. She locked the door, pressed her ear to it, and listened. She heard him cross the room, the chain slide free, the door open. Hello, darling. The woman's voice was silk wrapped around a blade. Miss me, he said nothing. The click of expensive heels on cheap linoleum, the rustle of fabric, the air in the motel room changing, growing heavier. More dangerous. You're supposed to be dead. I got better. The woman laughed. It was a beautiful sound which somehow made it worse. Aren't you going to invite me in properly? Or has living like this dulled your manners? What do you want? The same thing I've always wanted. Everything you have, starting with what's written on your skin. Maya's hands gripped the edge of the sink. In the carriers beside her, both babies slept on, completely unaware. The council thinks you're a hero, the woman continued. The devoted father who risked everything for his children. How touching, how noble. They have no idea what you actually are. And what's that? Soft, the word dripped with contempt. You let feelings get in the way of judgment. You kept the boy when you should have dealt with him. You turned down expansion because it violated your precious rules. A pause, you became weak, and weakness is why I had to die. You faked your death to take over. I orchestrated an evolution. The sound of her moving closer. The syndicate has to adapt or it dies. Your father understood that. He built an empire on blood and fear. You tried to build one on honor and restraint. Guess which one actually works? I'm not giving you the codes. I'm not asking, darling. A metallic click. A gun being cocked, I'm taking. The question is whether I do it while you're still breathing or after. Either way, you're not leaving this room. Maya's heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her teeth. She looked at the babies, sleeping peacefully, looked at the thin bathroom door that wouldn't stop a determined child. She'd promised him she'd stay hidden. But if he died out there, they all died anyway. Maya quietly opened the bathroom cabinet, searched for anything she could use. Rusted scissors, a plunger, nothing useful. Her fingers closed around something heavy and metallic. A pipe wrench, probably left by a maintenance worker and completely forgotten. It would have to do. Maya gripped it, tested the weight, unlocked the bathroom door, and eased it open a crack. What she saw made her stop breathing. The woman was beautiful in a way that didn't look quite real. Sharp features, porcelain skin, dressed in white that somehow stayed pristine in that dingy room. She held a gun steadily on him. He stood with his hands raised, his wounded shoulder bleeding again through the bandages. Behind the woman, 2 men in tactical gear stood by the door, professional, armed, watching him with dead, focused eyes. Last chance, she said. Give me the access codes willingly, and I'll make this quick. Refuse, and I'll make you watch while I put your children in the Chicago River piece by piece. His face didn't change, but Maya saw his hands curl into fists, saw the muscle jump in his jaw. The boy isn't mine, he said quietly. The woman's composure cracked. What, Sam? He's not my biological son. He spoke slowly, each word deliberate. His father was a man who worked for me, died protecting me 3 years ago. I took Sam in and raised him as my own. The children aren't twins, they never were. Maya's mind went spinning. She looked at the sleeping babies. Now that she knew, she could see the subtle differences she'd been too overwhelmed to notice before. Lena's rounder face, Sam's sharper jaw, different fathers, you adopted him. The woman's voice was flat with disbelief. You took in the orphan of a dead soldier and passed him off as your heir. Why? Because his father asked me to with his dying breath? Because Sam deserved better than an orphanage, because it was the right thing to do. You're right, I don't understand any of that. She raised the gun, centering it on his forehead, which is why I'm going to kill you now. Guards, Maya burst out of the bathroom with the wrench raised. She didn't think, didn't plan, just moved on pure instinct. The same thing that had made her press her hands to his bleeding chest in that alley. She swung at the nearest guard's head with everything she had. The impact sent shockwaves up her arms. He dropped like a stone. The second guard spun toward her, raising his weapon, but the man was already moving. He grabbed the woman's gun hand and twisted. The shot went wide, blowing through the ceiling. Plaster rained down. Maya swung the wrench at the second guard. He staggered. She hit him again and again, until he stopped moving. The silence that followed was absolute. Maya stood over the 2 unconscious men, breathing hard, the wrench slick in her hands. Across the room, the man had the woman on her knees, hand fisted in her perfect hair, the woman's own gun pressed to her temple. You shouldn't have threatened my children, he said quietly. The woman laughed, even with death against her skull. You can't kill me, darling. I'm still protected by the old code. The old code died when you did. Wait. Maya's voice cut through the room. Don't. His eyes snapped to hers. If you kill her, they never stop hunting us. But if we let her go, if we have proof that she broke the code first by going after civilians. Maya gestured to herself, to the babies, then we have something to bargain with. Leverage, a way out. The woman twisted, trying to see Maya properly. Who is this? The delivery girl you dragged into this? She's the woman, who just saved my life. How charming." The smile was pure venom. "Tell me, delivery girl, do you think he'll stay loyal to you any longer than he stayed loyal to me? Or will you end up discarded like every other woman who thought she was special to him?" Maya met her eyes steadily. "I don't need him to be loyal. I need him to be alive. Everything else is just details." Something moved across the woman's face. "Respect, maybe, or pure calculation. Tie her up," Maya said. "We're taking her with us." He looked at Maya like she'd grown a second head. But he didn't argue. He pulled zip ties from one of the unconscious guards and secured the woman's wrists and ankles with complete efficiency. They cleared out of the motel room in minutes. Maya carried both carriers while he dragged the woman to the van. They loaded everything in, Maya behind the wheel again, him in the passenger seat, gun trained on his supposedly dead wife in the back. "Where are we going?" Maya asked as she pulled out. "I don't know." For the first time since she'd met him, he sounded genuinely lost. "Every safe house is gone. Every ally is a question mark. We're ghosts with nowhere left to haunt." Maya's hands tightened on the wheel. In the back, Sam started crying, a thin, pained sound that made her chest seize. "Something's wrong." Maya said it before she even fully understood why. He twisted in his seat. His face went ashen. "He's bleeding, Maya." "He's bleeding." They found an abandoned gas station off a rural highway. Maya parked behind the building, out of sight of passing traffic. She lifted Sam from his carrier with shaking hands. Blood soaked through his little onesie, fresh, bright red. A bullet must have grazed him during the chaos at the storage complex. "We need a hospital. We need a miracle." His face was tight. "Hospitals leave records. Records mean they find us, find the babies, then he dies." Maya heard the edge of hysteria in her own voice. "Is that what you want? Watch him bleed out because you're too scared to, I'll do it." The woman's voice cut through their argument, still bound, still controlled, but her eyes were locked on Sam with something that looked, impossibly, like genuine concern. "Take my blood. I'm O-negative, universal donor." Meyer and the man both turned to stare at her. Why? His voice was flat with suspicion. "Because I'm not that kind of monster." The woman's smile was bitter, not the kind who lets children die. "That's your department, darling." The accusation landed and sat there, ugly. Maya looked between them. Saw years of history and damage she'd never be able to fully understand. Then she looked at Sam. "Do it," she said. They set up in the gas station bathroom, Maya's jacket spread on the floor as a surface. She'd stolen an Roman IV kit from her rotations months ago, kept it in her supplies on pure instinct. Now she was grateful for every small act of petty theft. The woman sat with her bound hands extended, watching calmly as Maya found the vein and started the flow. She didn't flinch, didn't complain, just bled quietly while Maya worked to save a child she'd threatened to kill an hour earlier. "He's not yours," the woman said after a long silence. She was looking at the man, not Maya. "You said Sam's father was someone who worked for you." "Yes, one of the few truly loyal ones. He would have died for you. He did. And you kept his son, raised him as your heir. Let the whole organization believe he was your blood." The woman's voice went distant. "That's why they couldn't find leverage. They ran tests expecting confirmation, and when it didn't match, they panicked." He said nothing. Maya saw the truth in his silence. "You're an idiot," the woman said. "A sentimental, honorable idiot. Sam's father should have been quietly set up somewhere safe in another country. Instead, you kept him close, made him a target. He's my son." The voice was pure steel. "Biology doesn't change that." "No," the woman's gaze shifted to Maya, "but it changes everything else. The council will never accept Sam as heir now. They'll eliminate him to keep the bloodline clean, unless someone with actual standing steps forward." The woman's eyes glittered. "Someone with authority who can challenge the old code and win." Maya's hands stilled. "You're suggesting I faked my death and tore everything apart for a reason." The woman leaned forward despite her bound hands. "I wanted power, yes, but I also wanted to drag the organization into the modern world. He stood in the way of that. But you, she looked at Maya with something close to approval. You're not tied down by tradition, not limited by rules that stopped making sense decades ago. You could actually change things. I'm a delivery driver, Maya said flatly. I'm nobody. You're the woman who kept him alive against every odd. Who keeps fighting when any rational person would have run? In the old stories, that makes you a queen, whether you want the crown or not. Before Maya could respond, Sam made a small sound, not quite a cry, more like a sigh. His color was coming back. The bleeding was slowing. Maya finished the transfusion with steady hands, disconnected the line, bandaged both the woman and Sam with the last of her supplies. He'll live, she said quietly. The man's exhale was long and shaky. He lifted Sam and held the baby against his chest with infinite care. This enormous, dangerous man, reduced to a terrified father holding his child. The burner phone buzzed. Unknown number, Maya answered. Hello, Maya, a man's voice she didn't recognize. I've been trying to reach him. Where are you? Somewhere safe. What do you want? News. The council is meeting tomorrow night. Emergency session. Succession vote, a pause. If he doesn't show, they declare him dead and split his territory. Everything he built will be gone. Maya looked at the man, saw the exhaustion in him. The way he held Sam, like the baby, was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. Where's the meeting? She asked. The address was a warehouse in the industrial district, full circle. Back to where it all began. One more thing, the voice said, going soft. They're offering a bounty, $2 million for proof of death. $3 million for delivery alive. Every hunter in 3 states is moving toward the city. You have maybe 6 hours before someone finds you. The line went dead. Maya stared at the phone. 6 hours. $2 million. Every desperate person with a gun in a 3-state radius would be coming for them. We need to split up, the man said. He'd heard everything. You take the babies, I'll pull the hunters away from you. No, Emily, Maya, and no. She met his gaze. We go together. We end this together. They'll kill you, maybe. She almost smiled, but at least I'll die doing something that matters. He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded once, accepting her choice the way she'd been accepting his from the beginning. They drove back through the night toward the city. The woman dozed in the back, still bound, no longer fighting it. The babies slept. Maya's hands were steady on the wheel. Her mind was clear for the first time in days. She was done being small, done being afraid. If the council wanted a queen, she would give them one. Even if it killed her. They made one stop on the way. Maya's old building. The neighbor from the 2nd floor had taken one look at the babies and pulled them inside without a word. Maya left a gun on the counter and whispered, "Anyone tries that door, you shoot." The woman had simply nodded. The warehouse where Maya had found the man bleeding felt different now, familiar, like somewhere she'd always been heading toward. The council was already there, 12 men in expensive suits around a long table that looked absurd in the industrial setting. They all turned as the man entered with Maya at his side, and the woman bound and gagged behind them. "You're alive," the eldest council member stood, disappointed. The man's voice was cold, relieved. The old man's gaze moved to Maya, then to the woman. "Though you've brought interesting company. The delivery girl who started all of this, and a ghost we thought we'd buried months ago. She faked her death to stage a coup," Maya said before the man could speak. "She hired the hunters. She poisoned the formula meant for the babies. She violated every principle this organization claims to stand by. Serious accusations." Another member leaned forward. "Do you have proof?" Maya pulled out the phone she'd taken from the woman's pocket. She'd spent the drive accessing it, her 1 semester of computer science finally proving its worth. She put the contents on the warehouse wall for everyone to see. Messages, financial transactions, kill orders. All of it laid out plainly. The council read it in silence. When they spoke, their voices were cold and tight with anger. The penalty for oath, breaking is death. The eldest looked at the woman with no feeling at all, immediate and absolute. Wait, Maya's voice rang through the warehouse. Every head turned to her. That's not why we're here. She kept going. We're not here to punish her. We're here to end the old code, to build something that doesn't destroy itself from the inside every generation. Bold words from a civilian. A younger member sneered. You have no standing here, no voice. She has standing. The man's voice cut through the room. She saved my life, saved my children. She has more honor than anyone sitting at this table. Honor doesn't grant a council seat. The old man's voice was tired. You know the rules. She's a loose end. Someone else said it plainly. Witnesses don't leave. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. You want her dead. The man said it without expression. We want things clean. The old man spread his hands. Nothing personal. The man moved faster than anyone in the room could track. 3 shots. 3 council members dropped, blood spreading across their suits. The room erupted. New rule. His voice cut through the shouting. The woman lives. Anyone who wants to argue about it, I'm happy to keep going. You're declaring war on your own council. The old man's voice shook. Against everything we stand for. No, the man lowered the gun slowly. I'm declaring evolution. The old code ends here. We build something new or we burn it all down. Your choice. Maya stepped forward, positioned herself between him and the council. You need leadership, she said. Someone who understands the old ways but isn't trapped by them. Someone who can deal with the modern world. With law enforcement, with legitimate business, with the 21st century, and you think that's you. The sneer was back. I think it's us. Maya looked at the man beside her. He knows the business. I know how to keep people alive. Together, that's something that works. Separately, you're just waiting for the next person to tear it all apart. The council members looked at each other. The math was simple. 3 seats were empty. The man had proven he'd burn the whole thing down before letting Maya be hurt. And the woman's betrayal had shown how fragile the old way of doing things really was. The old man finally spoke. What exactly are you proposing? A partnership? He runs operations. I handle everything external. Maya's voice was steady. We modernize. We diversify. We stop running things like it's still 50 years ago. And if we refuse? Maya looked at the man, saw the answer in his eyes. Then you don't, she said simply. And we start over with people who understand what century we're living in. The silence stretched out. Maya's heart was hammering so hard she was sure the whole room could hear it. The old man laughed, a rough, real sound. Sam's father would have liked you. He always said we needed someone who understood both worlds. The old man stood slowly. He extended his hand. Maya looked at it for a long moment. Then she reached out and shook it. His grip was firm. Welcome to the council, Maya Rodriguez. Try not to get us all killed. 3 months later, Maya stood in the penthouse looking out over the city skyline. The view was considerably better than her old studio apartment. The bathroom alone was bigger than her old studio apartment. Lena and Sam were in the nursery, protected by security that put most government buildings to shame. They were growing fast. Lena had learned to laugh. Sam had figured out how to grab his own toes. Normal baby things happening in a very abnormal world. You're thinking too loud. His arms wrapped around her from behind. His shoulder had healed. The tattoos still covered his skin, all those coordinates and codes and secrets. But now she knew how to read them, how to protect them. I'm thinking about delivery orders, Meyer admitted. About how one fake sushi order changed everything. Any regrets? No. She turned in his arms and kissed him. Not one. It wasn't a fairy tale. The organization still had enemies. The council still tested limits. The woman was in a secure facility somewhere, either being slowly rehabilitated or slowly broken. Maya genuinely wasn't sure which, and had decided she didn't need to be. But Maya was no longer the girl drowning in debt and grief and loneliness. She was someone else now. Someone harder. Someone who had held a dying man in a cold alley and refused to let him go. Someone who'd beaten trained killers with a pipe wrench and stared down a room full of dangerous men without blinking. Someone who had become a queen without ever once wanting the crown. The babies are asking for you. he said against her hair. Well, Sam is. Lena just threw her bottle at the nanny again. Maya laughed, coming. She took his hand. The same hand that had once pointed a gun at her chest in a blood-soaked alley. The same hand that now held their family together. Outside, the city glittered in the dark. Somewhere out there, delivery drivers were navigating the night. Somewhere out there, desperate people were making impossible choices. But here, in this moment, Maya Rodriguez had everything she needed. And she hadn't even had to deliver any sushi to get it.